Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're getting right to the heart of what actually separates scalable, thriving businesses from those that, well, crash and burn. We are talking about mastering unit economics. It's basically the DNA of a profitable business. We've got a great roadmap lined up for you today. We'll be looking at the 90% problem, decoding unit economics, contribution margins, and break-even points, the magic 3-to-1 ratio, common calculation mistakes, and finally, predicting future customer value. Section 1, the 90% problem, the stakes of survival. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off. 90%. That is the failure rate for startups in their first 3 years. 90%. It's honestly a pretty harrowing statistic. But here's the thing. It is a tragedy we can largely avoid. How? By locking down your foundational financial health before you even think about scaling. Because if your foundation is shaky, I promise you, the whole operation is going to topple. Moving on to Section 2, decoding unit economics, the foundation of profitability. To make this massive business concept a little more tangible, we need to focus on unit economics. Basically, this is the revenue and the costs associated with just one individual unit of production. So instead of looking at your massive top-line corporate revenue, you've got to zoom all the way in. Identify a single unit, maybe that's one software user, one retail shopper, or literally just one physical widget that adds value to your business. This isolates exactly what drives your growth on a micro level. Now, once you've defined that single unit, you need to know exactly what it costs you to get one. Enter CAC, your customer acquisition cost. It's really just your total marketing and sales spend divided by the number of units you actually acquired in that period. So let's say you drop 100,000 pounds on advertising this month and you snag 1,000 new software users. Your CAC is right on the money. Exactly 100 pounds per unit. Simple, right? On the flip side of that equation, we have customer lifetime value, or LTV. Think of this as the total amount of money a single unit is going to bring in over their entire relationship with your business. It's the average revenue that unit generates. Now, actually calculating this, not always a walk in the park. You really have to dig into your retention or churn rates, how often these customers are buying, and what their average order costs look like. Section 3, contribution margin and break-even. Visualizing the math. Okay, so this equation is absolutely crucial. Contribution margin equals total revenue minus variable costs. Remember, variable costs are the things that go up and down depending on how many items you're actually producing. Think raw materials or shipping. So your contribution margin is just your revenue minus those specific variable costs. Think of a burger joint calculating the exact cost of the meat, the buns, and the wrapper against the menu price of that one combo meal. Whatever cash is left over, that's what contributes to paying off your fixed costs, like your monthly rent. And when you map that equation out, it turns into a real, actionable strategy. As you sell more units over time, your contribution margin naturally scales up. And then boom, the magic happens exactly when you hit your break-even volume. This is the exact moment where your contribution margin officially covers all of those fixed costs. From that point on, every single unit you sell, that is generating pure profit for your business. Now, a quick aside, a lot of folks confuse contribution margin with gross profit. Let's clear that up because it's a huge distinction. Contribution margin isolates the impact of just your variable costs per unit. That makes it perfect for the day-to-day stuff, pricing strategies, or figuring out exactly when you'll hit that break-even point. Gross profit, on the other hand, subtracts all of your production costs, both fixed and variable. It's a much broader look at your overall cost structure. All right, on to Section 4, the magic 3-to-1 ratio, health metrics and strategy. This ratio right here, it's kind of the holy grail. Proving an LTV to CAC ratio of 3-to-1 is a massive green light for investors. It tells them they're looking at low-risk, long-term growth. Basically, it means every customer you bring in is generating at least 3 times the profit of what it actually costs to acquire them. If you're sitting at a ratio lower than that, you've got some work to do. You either need to drive down those acquisition costs with smarter targeting or pump up the lifetime value by offering better customer experiences and add-ons. So, what actually makes a good margin? Honestly, it varies wildly depending on the industry. Software and tech companies are usually sitting pretty at over a 70% contribution margin, mostly because their variable costs are practically zero. But if you look at highly competitive retail, they are grinding it out with much thinner, 20 to 40% margins. Understanding where your industry sits helps you benchmark your own performance and set financial goals that actually make sense for your specific cost structure. Section 5, 5 common calculation mistakes, the pitfalls. When bad data leads to bad decisions, it almost always comes back to these 5 traps. Number 1 is incredibly dangerous, throwing your sales, refunds, discounts, and shipping all into one giant bucket. If you just net off discounts against your gross sales, you literally cannot tell if your fluctuating margins are happening because of the discounts or because of something else entirely. You are flying blind. You've also got to watch out for inconsistent calculations of product margins, ignoring the time lags in shipping, not having one single source of truth across your sales channels, and tracking your margins in the wrong financial periods. Finally, Section 6, Predicting Future Customer Value, the Advanced Frontier. To really see how this works at scale, let's look at a fascinating case study involving the global fashion giant, ASOS. Their challenge is absolutely massive. We're talking over 12.5 million active customers and 85,000 different items. But here is the real kicker. They offer free shipping and free returns. Because they never recoup the delivery costs when someone returns an item, a customer can very easily end up costing the business money. It is a fast track to a negative customer lifetime value. To tackle this, ASOS rolled out an incredible forecasting solution. They take a full year of historical customer net spend and train a random forest regression model on it. Then they grab those learned parameters and drop them straight into their live system. This lets them actively predict the future value of every single customer over the next year. Because of this, they can instantly spot their high-value shoppers and be super smart about where they spend their retention budget. But they aren't stopping there. ASOS is actively pushing this model even further. The old state-of-the-art method relied on 132 handcrafted features, basically parameters manually designed by humans. But ASOS, they're moving toward automatically learning how their customers shop using neural embeddings. They pull these directly from raw web and app data. It is a total game changer because it captures incredibly rich, subtle patterns of shopping behavior that a human would just never see. But of course, using these advanced neural embeddings brings up a whole new data science headache, because the components of these embedded vectors randomly permute, or basically shuffle around, between the training phase and the live testing phase. You can't just map the parameters directly. The team literally had to invent a brand new form of warm start to correctly map these parameters so their long-term predictions stayed accurate. It just goes to show how complex but incredibly powerful mastering unit economics can be when you scale up to an enterprise level. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. We've journeyed all the way from the absolute basics of a single unit's margin, right up to using neural embeddings to predict future retail behavior. So as you take these concepts and apply them to your own operations, I want to leave you with one critical question to think about. Do you truly accurately know the lifetime value of your customers? And more importantly, is your business model genuinely ready to scale? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep optimizing, and I'll see you next time.